Hey guys, Natalie here. I want to do a testimony for you guys. Something I've been meaning to do, and I wanted to do actually in the beginning, but I've been focused on trying to help you understand, if you've been following the channels, understand the ways that God speaks to us through dreams. And now I'm covering the prophetic numbers as the second way. But I want to do this testimony as quickly as I can here for you. So I was someone that when I was 25, just some weeks before 25, I was doing project management. I was like, okay, you know what? I've been, even as a lukewarm Christian, I was waiting for marriage and I really didn't date at that time. I never dated, never kissed a boy, never nothing at that time. So one weekend, my relative and I went out, and she brought a friend along and he brought his relative along. And so we went out for a movie or something. And by the end of the night, this this kid was calling for me, and you know I guess because at the time he realized I never had a boyfriend, never dated, so intrigued, right? Of course, I was 24 and naive, some weeks from 25, and if I only knew then what I know now. But anyways, um so I dated just a few guys. So that was 25 for 5 months. Then I took a year to heal. I was always very smart with that. I knew I needed to grieve and go through some healing, and there'll be other testimonies through some of this. But I was 26, and then I decided to date. I think so. It was around the spring, summertime each year. 26, I dated someone else, and again, that was 5 months. Took some time off again, and by 27, same thing. I think it was around spring, summer. I dated someone else after healing, and so by the time of the fifth month, that ended, and so I was just again back out there healing, not dating, not having anything to do with anyone, just um, doing what I need to do for myself. So I think at that point I wasn't even interested in dating anymore, and I was going out with my guy friends, single guy friends. So most of the girls I knew, actually, if not all of them, were married with kids or divorced with kids, and no one really single anymore. Um, so my friends were the single guys. So I'd go out with them and we go wherever they went. They went for restaurant, they went to the bar, they went to, whatever. I went wherever they went. So this was 27, I think, or almost, or 28. I think probably 28. Um, and at one point, some of the guys that, hung with them were not too thrilled that I was there all the time. And they were actually just kind of, annoyed with me, even though if we went to the club, and I'm not recommending clubs, that was something I did in my 20s as a lukewarm Christian, not knowing what I know now. But when I would go out with them, we go to the clubs, I'd go on the dance floor, which is where I was the happiest. I was there for anyways, go dance. They would go pick up girls. So I was just, not really in the way of anything. But one of the guys wasn't too thrilled that I was there. So I kind of stepped back from these guys, and I don't know, just was by myself, and maybe, doing my thing, I guess, with family. Now, around 28, I said to myself, you know what? I'm getting late in age here, creeping towards 30. And I had heard from other girls in the corporate world that, they met their husband online and things like that. So I said, let me go and try it. I think actually it was 25. I heard one of the girls say that. So this online dating thing was something I've tried before. So I said, let me go try this again. So, but of course, my version of online dating is not the world's, right? The world's, I found like the dating world just was not my cup of tea. Things that people would do, like, or want to do too soon, wasn't really how I was raised, wasn't really the type of person I was. Um, I always felt like out of place in this dating scene and this culture of dating. It just wasn't my cup of tea, because I was also someone that was waiting for marriage, but I just didn't know how to go about finding the person for marriage. So I ended up chatting with someone online, and he said he was chatting with a bunch of girls. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's not how I do that stuff, but okay, good luck. And I left it alone. Now, sometime later, he reached out again to me, and we met up for a bite or whatever. I can't remember what the first date was. Probably coffee, probably dinner. Actually, yeah, I think he was classy in that way, that he would take you out for dinner, right? So dated him for months. Then that turned into something more serious, and 7-year relationship. So By the time I came out of that relationship, which was my first real relationship, I was heartbroken. So it didn't end well. And again, there'll be some more testimonies about some of this stuff. So I took a couple years off to heal, as I was always very smart with doing. I didn't date much. This was like my fourth relationship, with the first three just being 5 months each per year. So it wasn't really, I didn't really learn much of anything, but you did learn, right? Each relationship, you learn something. So it's good. Learning is good and growing. But by this time, I took 2 years off to heal. I was just trying to grieve, get through this. Satan used some of the heartbreak as well to take me down certain paths of um, participating in things like numerology and whatever. So I'll talk about those in other videos. But I was mostly at home. So I remember so many weekends would just roll around and I'm just laying at home in the darkness. I did have one girlfriend who her son was a little older and sometimes she would go out. So whenever they would go out, I would go out with them. But most times I'd be at home or at family events. It was mostly family events. And then sometimes if they wanted to go to a club and they were free, I'd go. But again, primarily it was I was home. I would darkness would fall on me all the time. So I remember one winter, I think it was, yeah, either fall or winter. I had a relative visiting from Cleveland, visiting us in Canada, and he knew I was single, and he said again, and so he said, Natalie, did you ever think of like going to God about your husband? And I thought, wow, what a revelation! No, I never thought of it. I said to him, I recite scriptures every night. I pray for my family and my all my relatives, my aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody. I pray that God keeps them and takes care of all of them, but I never actually thought about that. So that was such fresh revelation. So as he said that, I started to pray that every night. So I was living my life. I wasn't out there dating. I wasn't doing anything, just living my life, going to work, being with friends and family, and praying every night for God to send me who he had. And I asked him, please, God, send me someone who's a good Christian man, someone who will be a good father, a good husband. That was all I pretty much asked for. I said I didn't even care what he drives or what he does. I wasn't interested in any of that. So go figure, everything I prayed for was exactly what happened, because a year later, I had a relative call me and she said, oh, she wants to go out. And she's an older relative. I've never gone out with her alone. It was only family events. And she said she wanted to go dancing, but don't want to go. And she called a bunch of times over that winter. And I remember one night being at a cousin's birthday party. I was like, no, I'm not coming out to a club. I'm not leaving Toronto to drive there. That's not happening. So she called many times. Finally, I think I caved in. One Friday night, she called. She was like, I want to go dancing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing anything. Let me just go out and have some fun. So I ended up going out with her, but she was calling about this guy all the time. And she said, oh, he's this tall, handsome, single guy looking for someone to settle with. He's meeting divorced women, which is what not what he was looking for with children. He wanted to find someone single to have his own children and such, and he's entitled to that. So I was like, okay. So we went to the club and a bunch of us gathered there, and there was another girl that was actually with him that night. And so my relative and I were intrigued, like, who is this person? So we chatted with her, but she wasn't very friendly or very open to talking. So we just kind of moved over from the bar where we were, and I went on the dance floor dancing. And as it always happened, guys are coming up to me, but I'm like just dancing, right? Because that's all I ever did at the clubs anyway. So um, by the end of the night, as we were getting ready to leave, or early morning specifically, he asked where I was going. And if, I guess he asked if I wanted to go somewhere with him. And I said, no, I'm going to leave with my relative that I came with, and wherever they go, I go. So he decided to leave with this lady that he came with. And so I thought, oh, interesting. That doesn't show that he's a very good character. So the next time I met him was at the club again. They all gathered there again, and his friend said to me, "Hey, Natalie, give him a chance. He's a good guy. This, that, and next." I was like, "Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's a good guy, but okay." So I got to know him, and as I started to date him, oh my goodness, I realized that he was the person that God had for me, and it wasn't the person that I knew before. So it basically explained everything, that the person before was a counterfeit. This person was my God ordained husband.